Yeah, Orlah base Zion.
We have, oh, let's put this in one place. Okay, sorry. Stringently and leniently if they are of different kinds, how so? If, for instance, crushed beans have been cooked with lentils and they impart a flavor, whether they are outweighed by 100 to 1 or they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, it's forbidden. If they do not impart a flavor, whether they are outweighed by 100 to 1 or whether they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, it is permitted. If leaven of chulin fell into dough, and it suffices to leaven, and then leaven of truma fell in, or leaven of kilo akairim fell in, and it suffices to leaven, it's forbidden. If leaven of chulin fell into dough and leavened it, and the leaven of truma or leaven of kilo akairim,
Yeah.
right, fell into it, and it suffices to leaven, it is forbidden. But Reb Shimon permits.
Okay. So up until now, okay. So that's talking about when you've got zeva zegorim, when two things are possibly causing the chimutz. Oh, my cat wants out. Sorry. How'd you go? So here we're holding that that if there's enough isser in there to be machmetz the mixture, then we say it is aser. Okay, next case, Mishnah Yod, tavlin, spices. Now spices have got the property that they that you can taste them in more than 1 in 60. Okay, so shnayim ushlosha shemos mimin echad. If you have 2 or 3 different shemos, that's the shemos shal iser. Um, uh, so different types of iser. For example, one of them is truma, one of them is orla, one of them is kilaya kerim. Okay. Okay. So they're all from one species, let's say. So it's one kind of species, but it's similar. But you got some that's truma, you got some that's kilaya kerim, you got some that's orla, okay, or mishlosha, or even if you got 3 different species, right? Like you got pepper, onion, and chometz, grape vinegar or something like that, and l'shem echad, and they're all of one type of iser. So you see that the 2 different combinations. Either you've got three different species, all of the same type of iser, or 3 different types of iser on one species. Okay, asur umitzarfin. They all of these cases are still asur, and they join together. You put them together to find the shear of Isser. Okay. Rabbi Shimon omer shnayim u'shlosha shemos mimin echad or shnei minim mishem echad enam mitztarfim. So Rabbi Shimon, again, it comes to be makil as in the previous Mishnah, and says if you got different categories, they got in other words three different isurim, or different speed, or in both of these cases, it says if you can't combine the two. If you want to combine them, they've got to be the same species and the same category of Isser in order to join them. Okay, but the halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon. Okay, Yud Aleph, Seor shel chulin v'shel truma. So now we're returning back to, so that was sort of a digression that we had since we were talking about Rabbi Shimon's opinion in the previous Mishnah, which was that when you've got 2 things that join together, you had the heter that came and was machmitz the dough, and then Isser came and that was enough to usher the dough. So Rabbi Shimon said, it didn't make such a difference. So the same thing over here. So it's while we're talking about that, we take a little bit of a digression to talk about Rabbi Shimon's opinion in Mishnah Yud. So now we return to our main subject, Seor shel chulin v'shel truma, shenaflu l'soch isa. So you have sourdough of chulin and of truma that fell into a dough. So that's a familiar case from our previous Mishnayos. Okay. Lo b'zeh kedei lechametz v'lo b'zeh kedei lechametz. Each one would have been insufficient. It's not enough sourdough to make the dough ferment. Nitztarfu but they joined together, and they made it ferment. Okay, so now you've got a chatzi share of seor that made it ferment and a chatzi share of heter that made it ferment. So what do? Rabbi Eliezer on there, achar ha'achron aniba. He says you go after the last one. What's Rabbi Eliezer's svara over here? Is that if the heter, let's say the heter fell in first and nothing happened, and then then the iser fell in, and now something happened. And now, so then you say that's the Makiva Patish, the one that completed the process. That's the ikar one that went in, and we're going to pass in halacha of the mixture according to the last thing that fell in, because that's the one that gave the Makiva Patish.
Because we said before in the previous Mishnah, I think that if this so if the truma, if it falls into the dough and it starts to leaven, then it's usher.
Right, but the difference between those cases and this case is that in the previous cases, the sourdough was a sufficient quantity to make it ferment of both heter and iser.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we've got half that amount. So neither the heter sourdough or the iser sourdough was enough to make it ferment, but together they combined and made it ferment. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer says we go after the last thing that fell in. Chachamim omrim bein shenafal iser betchila bein besof leolam eino oser ad sheyeh bo kedei lechametz. The Chachamim say no. We don't look at the makiv patish. We say, is there enough iser in this mixture? And there's not enough iser in this mixture to have done anything, and therefore it would be mutar. So that's called. So this is the concept of zev gorim. When you've got the heter and the iser both coming together to join, is mutar, because the iser wasn't sufficient to cause anything to happen. So it's a similar sort of case to where you have it's basically a bittul. So even though your iser is there is iser in the mix, but it's too small to be significant, and it wasn't enough to make it ferment by itself. So therefore we call it batel. Okay. Mishna Yud Beis. Yoezer ish habira aya mi talmidei Beis Shammai. So he was one of the Talmidim of Beis Shammai. Ve'amar she'alti es Rabban Gamliel hazakein omeid b'shar hamizrach ve'amar leolam eino oser ad sheyeh bo kedei lechametz. So this fellow called Yoezer ish habira. And Kati has a little bit of a discussion about this origin of his name, which we'll skip over here. So as a Talmud of Beis Shammai, he went to Rabban Gamliel Azaken, who of course is the grandson of Hillel. Okay, and he was standing in the Shar Mizrach on Har Bayis, which is basically close. I'm not sure what the significance is that he was standing on Har Bayis, but he asks him the Shaila. And Rabban Gamliel says, "Leolam ein oser," whether it doesn't matter whether it fell in the beginning or fell in the end. So basically, it's a repetition of the previous Mishnah. Okay, so what does this mean? So the Baltas Yom Tov teaches us that this Maaseh is brought as a proof that even the Talmidei Beis Shammai accepted the words of Beis Hillel over here.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the emphasis is brought that he's from the Talmidei Beis Shammai, and they accepted Beis Hillel's opinion on this.
There's a comment here that says, according to others, the Bria is the officer in charge of the Bria on the Temple Mount. That's explained by Bar Yochanan. And then there was a place on the Temple Mount called Bria, possibly a tower serving the Temple Mount. However, according to Reish Lakish, the entire temple is called Bria. Thus, and so to Solomon, my son, give a perfect heart to guard your commandments, and build the Bria for which I have made a provision. And Yota, the man of the Bria, was the officer in charge of the temple. So
right.
Maybe he was standing there.
Yeah. So it's yeah, right. Okay.
All right. Okay. We are on
Chalad Daled Vav.
Daled Vav. Okay. Now, concerning what they did, that whatever causes to ferment or flavors, or which renders meduma the ruling astringent, in the case of like kinds, stringently and leniently, if they are of different kinds, how so? If leaven of wheat fell into dough of wheat, and it suffices to leaven, then whether it is outweighed by 100 to 1 or is not outweighed by 100 to 1, it's forbidden. If it is not outweighed by 100 to 1, then whether it suffices to cause fermentation or it does not suffice to cause fermentation, it's forbidden. Stringently and lingently, there are different kinds. I just read this though.
Yeah. Just hold on a second. I lost focus over here. Which Mishnah are you reading?
I just read Vav.
That's not you're not in Maseches Chala then, or you're not in the right parak.
I'm not in Chalak because I want to do Orlah again just to make sure that I had it right. So
Right, okay, good. I was wondering. Okay.
okay.
So I was fiddling with my bookmark,
Wait.
and then I came back and I thought, where are we?
But we should be in Chalak.
Yes.
Had two bookmarks there. That's what happened. And it again. Okay. We are in Daled Vav. One may take the challah quantity from dough from which challah had not been yet separated, to make it into a state of cleanliness, in order to go on separating it from challah of demai until it rots. For challah of demai may be taken from the clean for the unclean, and from that which is not nearby. If Jews were asrisim of non-Jews in Syria, then Reb Eliezer declares their produce liable to masros and to the laws of the 7th year. But Rabbi Gamil says, Rabbi Gamil exempts. Rabbi Gamil says 2 challahs in Syria, but Reb Eliezer says 1 challah. They adopted the lenient ruling of Reb Gamil and the lenient ruling of Reb Eliezer. They retracted the following ruling of Reb Gamil in respect to both. And Rabbi Gamil says there are 3 lands regarding challah. From Ezra Yisrael to Kiziv, from 1 challah. From Kiziv up to the river and up to Amana, 2 challahs, 1 for the fire and 1 for the priest. The 1 for the fire was a measure, but the 1 for the priest had no measure. From the river and Amana inward, 2 challahs, 1 for the fire and 1 for the priest. The 1 for the fire has no measure, but the 1 for the priest has a measure, and a tefel yom may eat it. Reb Yossi says he does not require immersion, and it is forbidden to zavim and zavot, nida and women after childbirth, but it may be eaten at a table with a non-priest and may be given to any priest. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Mastros, final Mishnah in Mastros.
Okay. Baal Bakir garlic, Rikha onions, Sicilian beans, excuse me, and Egyptian lentils. Reb Meir says also colocasia. Reb Yoshi says also wild lentils are exempt from Isris and may be bought from anyone in the 7th year. The higher seed pounds of the arum, seed of leeks, seed of onions, seed of turnips and radishes, and other seeds of garden produce which do not serve as food are exempt from Isris and may be bought from anyone in the 7th year. Though they were grown from Truma stock, they may be eaten. Okay, Hajj Allah.
Adrian Allah Masechus Mastros. Master Shani.
Wait a second. What happened? Why don't I have that? I put it away? No, here it is. It's on the challah. The way they have this done is not kosher. Ma'aser Sheni, first one. And do I put it? Ma'aser Sheni may not be sold or pledged or bartered, nor may it be used as a weight, nor one should not say to his fellow in Yerushalayim, here is wine, give me oil. So also with any other produce, but they may give it to anyone to another one as a free gift. Or one to give to one another as a free gift. Ma'aser of cattle when unblemished may not be sold alive, and when blemished neither alive or slaughtered, nor may one betroth a woman with it. The first thing when unblemished may be sold alive, and when blemished both alive and slaughtered, and one may betroth a woman with it, and Ma'aser Sheni may not be redeemed with an asimon, or with a coin which is not current, or with money that is not at one's disposal. If one buys cattle for peace offering,
no, that's it. We did one from Mastros, so we just did 2 from Master Shani today. Okay, Kilayim. Okay.
A vineyard that has been laid waste. If 10 vines can be harvested with one beitzah and they are planted according to the law, it is called a poor vineyard. If a vineyard has been planted in an irregular layout, if there are two opposite three, it is a vineyard. But if not, it is not a vineyard. Reb Meir says since it has the appearance of vineyards, it is a vineyard. A vineyard which is planted less than 4 amet apart, Reb Shimon says it is not a vineyard, and when the sages say it is a vineyard, and the middle ones are regarded as not existent. A ditch 10 deep and 4 wide, which crosses a vineyard. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says if it is a transverses the vineyard from the beginning to the end, then it has the appearance of lying between two vineyards, and one may sow in it. But if not, if it is like a wine press, and a wine press 10 deep and 4 wide is a vineyard, Reb Eliezer says one may sow in it, but the Kachamim forbid. A watch mound 10 high and 4 wide is a vineyard. One may sow on it, but if the tips of the branches intertwined, it's forbidden. Okay.
Okay.
Should be up to Para.
Yep, para.
Eliezer says a pregnant Katas cow is valid, but the sages invalidate. Reb Eliezer says it may not be purchased from idol worshippers, but the Kachamim validate it. And not only this, but regarding all sacrificial offerings, both communal and individual. All sacrificial offerings may be brought from within the land and from outside the land, and from the new crop and from the old crop, except for the omer and 2 loaves, which may only come from the new crop in the land. A cow whose horns or hooves are black, one should cut them off. The eyeball and the teeth and the tongue do not invalidate the cow. A dwarf cow is valid. If it had a wart and one cut it off, Reb Yehuda invalidates the cow. Reb Shimon says any place that the wart was removed and did not give rise to wet hair in its place, the cow is disqualified. A cow born by cesarean section in a harlot's hire, and the exchange for a dog, it is invalid. Reb Eliezer validates it for he stated, you shall not bring a harlot or hire or the exchange for a dog to the house of Hashem, your guard, and this does not come to the house. All the blemishes which invalidate consecrated animals invalidate the cow, and if one rode on it, leaned on it, hung from its tail, and crossed the river with it, folded the rope on it, placed the cloak on it, it's invalidated.
But once you use, if you're using it for your own malacha, then it's puzzle because now it's been worked.
Right. If one tied it with a rope, made a shoe for it so that it could not slip, spread the cloak on it on account of the flies, it's valid. This is the rule. Anything done for the cow's need, it's valid. For any other need, it's invalid.
Okay.
Okay.
Zvachim. Aleph Gimel.
A Pesach offering which was slaughtered on the morning of the 14th of Nisan for a designation other than its own, Rabbi Yeshua validates it as if it had been slaughtered on the 13th. But Ben Betzara invalidates it as if it had been slaughtered in the afternoon. Said Reb Shimon ben Azai, I have received a tradition from the 72 sages on the day that they appointed Reb Elazar ben Azariah to the yeshiva, that all sacrifices that are eaten, which were slaughtered for a designation other than their own, are valid. But they are not credited to the owner as fulfillment of his obligation, except for the Pesach and Chatas offerings. Ben Azai added only the Orlah offering, but the Kachamim did not concur with him. If one slaughtered a Pesach offering and a Chatas offering for his designation other than their own, or he received their blood or conveyed or threw it for a designation other than their own, or for designation other than their own, or a designation other than their own as well as for their own designation, they are invalid. What's an example of for their own designation and for the designation other than their own? For a Pesach designation and a Shlomin designation, what is the example for a designation other than their own as well as for their own? For a Shlomin designation and for the Pesach designation. For a sacrifice can be invalidated during any of 4 things: during the slaughter, reception of the blood, conveying to the altar, and throwing upon the altar. Reb Shimon validates in the case of conveying, and for Reb Shimon used to say it's impossible to make an offering without slaughtering, receiving, or throwing the blood. But it is possible without conveying it, because one can slaughter the offering at the side of the altar and throw the blood there. Reb Eliezer says if one walks where he must walk, the intent invalidates, but if one walks where he need not walk, the intent does not invalidate. Any sacrifice whose blood is received by a Kohen or an Onin or a Tevel Yom, or one who lacks vestments, or one who lacks atonement, or one whose hands and feet have not been washed, or one who is uncircumcised, or one who is tummy, or one who is sitting or standing upon utensils, or an animal, or his colleague's feet, it is invalid. If one received the blood with his left hand, he invalidates it, but Reb Shimon validates. If he slipped on the floor and he gathered it up, it's invalid. If he applied it on the ramp or not opposite the altar's base, or if he applied that which should be applied to the page here, or applied it to the lower part of the altar above, or that which should be applied to the upper part or upper part below, or that which should be applied within the sanctuary or the outside, or that which should be applied to the outside within the sanctuary, it's invalid, but it bears no charas.
Ad kan.
That's right.
Subos.
Okay. A virgin is given 12 months from the time her husband has asked her to provide herself. And just as a woman is given, so is a man given to provide himself. A widow is given 30 days. If the time arrived and they were not married, they eat of his food and they may eat of truma. Reb Tarfon says she is given all of it from truma. Reb Akiva says half ordinary food and half truma. A yavam does not confer upon his sister-in-law the right to eat of truma. If she had spent 6 months before her husband and 6 months after before the yavam, and even all of them before her husband, less one day that she spent before the yavam, or all of them before the consecrated no,
Before the
before
Yavam.
the yavam, then less one day than she spent before her husband, she may not eat of truma. This is the original ruling. The court came after them and said a woman may not eat of truma until she enters the chuppah. If one consecrated his wife's handiwork, she may nevertheless work and eat. If he consecrated the surplus, Reb Meir says he is consecrated. Reb Yochanan Sanla says it is not consecrated.
Okay, it's a shaila here in Davar Shelo Ba'ale Olama. Can a person sanctify something that has not yet been that has not yet come into being?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Adkan, that's us for today.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. And Mr. Shammai, we'll see you. Oh, someone asked me today if you're having shit on Wednesday. I said, as far as I know, yes. It was just a
As
special.
far as I know, yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bye.